I think we boiled water in 3 minutes and maybe slightly over 3 minutes. We did it at the house, and it was cold when we started. And the reason I like these is you're not out having to split wood and chop wood and all this. You can take the little sticks off of the white pine I was showing you, and in they go. Just a little bit of biomass and you're good. So if you're in longer term situations, these are great because it's just enough fire. You don't have to build this huge honking fire to get a bed of coals to boil water and then I'm done, and I've got all these coals to deal with. And I've used all the energy I had to invest into that. So basically this is your fire tray. It's going to hold the actual fire, and this is where it draws its air. So when you place this on it, so you've got a chimney basically, it comes out here, and it comes out blue flame hot, like really, really hot. They don't call it rocket stove for nothing. And so when you're done, make sure that you don't put the cork back in when you're cooking, because you create a pressured environment. Bad hair day. So once it's hot enough, and you want to leave a little head space, I generally will go down to the first or second joint in my finger and let that be the top of the water, right about there. Because as it reaches a violent boil, you want a little head space in it. So once that happens, you take your handy little pot handle here, and you lift it up at 90 degrees, because this thing's hot. And you go like so. And see, now I don't need a pot holder. I can raise that thing up without touching it and burn myself. And then I'll take the cork that's trailing along there, and now I can pour it into whatever other vessel I have waiting. So it's a really just basic, there's not really moving parts or anything just high-techy about it. It's stainless steel. You can get them in aluminum for weight, but I prefer stainless. I've got a smaller one that you're welcome to look at. Do you have the cook set with yours, Harry? You do? But you don't have the, yes you do, right here. What's also neat about this is you place this inside of here, and as that blue flame comes out the top, super hot, while my water's boiling, and never run one of these dry, by the way. You always should have water in there if you have an active fire. You can cook cricket gumbo, whatever you're working on, you can have that. And here's a lid, boom. My son, the first time I really used my big one like this, we were fishing over at Lake Notley, and he was catching some small bass. I was showing him how to use a hand line, just wrapped around a bottle, you know. And so he was catching, you know, just small fish like that. And so I was sticking the fish in here and getting water out of the lake because we didn't have any water. And so I was purifying the drinking water and cooking our fish at the same time. And there were people right around the cove from us, and they didn't know we were in there, because there's very little smoke if you do it right, and there's no really visible flame except for this port here and some glow right here.
And,
so,
you feed it with twigs and...
Yeah, you just kind of feed it, which becomes a problem once you've capped it off like this. You have to feed it from the bottom chamber. If your object is just to boil water, then you can just stand here and chunk pine cones. To find pine cones about that size, those are great fuel for these. It's fast and it's hot, but the pines will smoke a lot. If you find a drier wood like poplar, that's pretty good, and if it's dry and the bark's off of it, it doesn't smoke as much. But you can play with your woods. The other thing about using pine is it'll build up in here just like it does in your chimney. It builds up that sludge, and after a while you're gonna have to scrape that off, and then subsequent burnings will smoke because it's burning that sludge out of there. So yeah, that's it. You just basically put your water in and then build your fire, and it's caveman simple. So whoever wants to play with that, I'm gonna go gather some door materials. I had somebody ask about how do you make a door for the shelter. I'm gonna kind of halfway try to do that. So just pour some.
Question was, how much water does that make? That was your question?
This much.
1 liter?
If you, it looks huge, and that looks like not so much water, but remember that it's largely hollow, which is why it gets hot so fast and burns so efficiently. And that's the downside of this. It is bulky. It takes up quite a spot in your pack. But what I do is I normally stuff oatmeal packets, the little instant oatmeal packs. I cram this thing full so I'm not wasting the space. And if my kids need something to eat, that's a really fast way to get something hot, you know, for them to eat. So you can always use that space. And another thing I have done, if it's a real rainy environment and I'm carrying one of these, when I stop and use it, is I will look for more of that wood, like on the white pine that I showed you, or anything that's nice and burnable. And when I decide to repack this, is I fill this full of the fuel that I'm going to use next time. So that if I happen to break this out and it's a deluge outside and coming straight down rain, I can get under something and I've got just enough wood in here to get that water boiled or whatever I need to do. It's already inside there waiting on me, so that's another way to go about that. But yeah, it will fill, to answer your question, it will fill this container level to the top once it's been boiled, and you leave the headspace like I talked about. That's the pot that comes with it, and the little handy dandy lid. And it all kind of packs together, you know, that will fit inside of there. So it doesn't take up a lot of space. There's not a lot of dead space, but what is in there you can fill with sticks and fuel or food or whatever. And then there's this thing, which I've never used on mine. I just, it's somewhere living in the house. But if you did a bunch of burning, let's say you've got coals left over in here, then you take these two grates and you put them together and you've got redneck hibachi.